Welcome to the Brew Coffee Tavern, where every cup tells a story, and every story starts with a sip. Join us on a journey of adventure, camaraderie, and of course, the finest brews, served hot and steeped in mystery. From dragons to ancient legends, we're brewing up more than just coffee. Today's tale begins. At the beginning, Java, a young coffee-loving dragon, roams the land in search of the perfect brew. His curiosity sets the adventure in motion, though he has no idea yet what it will lead to. But before we dive into today's adventure, a quick word from our sponsor.
In the heart of every great quest, there's a hero. And behind every hero, there's their morning brew. At Brew Coffee, we craft bold blends for adventurers like you. From the depths of dark roasted caverns to the peaks of spiced mountains, every sip fuels your next move.
Don't forget, it's dragon approved.
Thank you for that reminder, Java. Whether you're battling spreadsheets, chasing dreams, or simply savoring life, Brew Coffee is your trusted companion. Unleash the flavor, conquer your day. Visit us online or in the heart of your favorite adventure. Brew Coffee, where legends begin.
Now, grab your mug, settle in, and get ready for the next chapter in our brewing saga. Episode 1. The Spark of a Journey. Java was small for a dragon, but he carried himself with the confidence of one who knew his purpose, at least when it came to coffee. His scales shimmered black with creamy undertones in the sunlight as he darted above the trees, sniffing the air for the telltale aroma of roasted beans. Today, his search had taken him far from his cozy mountain cave, and the thrill of discovery filled his light golden-green eyes. He hadn't ventured this far since the unforgettable Yule Festival with those crazy and amazing Vikings along the eastern coast, a wild celebration of firelight, feasting, and, of course, spiced cider. Here, the world below was quiet, save for the gentle rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird. But Java's focus wasn't on the tranquil beauty of the landscape. No, his attention was firmly fixed on the faint yet unmistakable scent of roasted coffee drifting through the air. He murmured, his light golden-green eyes narrowing as he adjusted his course.
Earthy, robust, with a hint of caramel. Definitely better than that weak brew from the village market.
Java wasn't just a dragon, he was a coffee connoisseur. Ever since he'd hatched in his cozy mountain cave, the rich, intoxicating aroma of coffee had been his guiding star. It wasn't just a drink to him, it was a way of life, an art, and, most importantly, an endless adventure. Following his nose, Java spiraled down toward a dense forest. The trees stretched high into the sky, their emerald canopies swaying gently in the breeze, but there was something hidden within, he could feel it. He landed with a soft thud on a narrow trail, where crumbling stones jutted from the earth like forgotten teeth, his claws sinking into the damp earth. Pausing to sniff the air again, he grinned.
Ah. Closer.
He said, his tail swishing eagerly.
Maybe there's a hidden cafe, or even better, wild beans.
He padded along the trail, weaving between ancient oaks and towering pines. The further he went, the more the forest seemed to close in around him. The air grew cooler, the sunlight dimmer. Java paused, tilting his head. He noticed something odd. Though the wind rustled the leaves high above, the forest floor was eerily silent. No bird song. No rustling of small creatures. Just an unnatural stillness.
Strange.
He muttered. His curiosity piqued, he pressed on. The trees gave way abruptly, revealing a small clearing dominated by the ancient ruin he'd caught a glimpse of earlier. Java froze, his eyes widening. It wasn't just the age of the structure, it was the way it seemed alive. Vines twisted around crumbling pillars, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. Symbols etched into the weathered stone walls shimmered like dying embers, and the air carried a faint hum, just barely audible. Time had not been kind to the structure, its stones were cracked and worn, and thick vines had claimed it as their own. Yet, despite its state of decay, there was something undeniably majestic about the place. Symbols carved into the stone seemed to shimmer faintly, their glow almost imperceptible in the dim light.
Whoa.
Java breathed, his wings fluttering with excitement.
This isn't just some random ruin.
Drawn by the mysterious glow, he stepped inside. The air was damp and heavy, carrying a scent that was equal parts ancient stone and rich, roasted beans. Java's claws clicked softly against the floor as he explored. His gaze darted across the room, taking in the intricate carvings that adorned every surface. Dragons, strange creatures, and swirling patterns danced along the walls, telling stories he couldn't quite decipher. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, its smooth surface reflecting the faint glow of the symbols around it. Atop the pedestal lay a map, its edges worn and curling, as if it had been waiting there for ages. Java hesitated, his gaze locked on the parchment. The glow of the room seemed to pulse faintly, as if encouraging him to step closer.
Well,
He said, his voice breaking the silence.
if this isn't the most dramatic coffee shop I've ever seen.
With a nervous chuckle. When he reached the pedestal, he hesitated, his wings twitching.
It's probably just a normal everyday ancient map sitting in a ruin. Right? I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
He reached out, his claw brushing the edge of the parchment. The hum grew louder, and the light above him flared brighter. Java jerked his claw back, glancing around. Nothing else moved. The room was silent.
Okay.
He said, puffing out his chest.
You've faced lukewarm coffee and stale beans. You can handle this.
This time, he snatched the map quickly and held it tight. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hum quieted, and the light dimmed. Java exhaled a sigh of relief.
See? Easy peasy. Now let's.
His excitement was short-lived. The room began to quake, the pedestal sinking into the floor with a grinding noise. The glowing symbols flared brightly before dimming to near darkness. The glowing vines that had once seemed merely decorative now slithered toward him, their movements deliberate and menacing.
Okay, time to go.
Java yelped, clutching the map to his chest as he launched himself into the air. The ruin's doorway loomed ahead, but he didn't dare slow down. Behind him, the vines continued their pursuit, snapping at his tail. One lashed out, snagging the tip of his tail. Java growled, twisting midair and blasting the vine with a small burst of his fiery breath. The vine recoiled with a hiss, releasing him just long enough for him to burst through the doorway and into the open air.
Why is it always vines?
He grumbled, flapping hard away from the ruins. The forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as he escaped, the stillness lifting like a forgotten spell. Panting, Java landed on a boulder at the edge of the clearing, his chest heaving. He looked down at the map still clutched in his claws. He unrolled the map again, this time studying it more carefully. Its surface was marked with trails that wove through forests, mountains, and deserts, all leading to a central point. At the top of the map, written in flowing, almost otherworldly script, were the words, "The blend of the gods." Java's eyes widened.
The blend of the gods? This is it! My greatest quest yet. If this map is real, then the greatest coffee in the world is out there waiting for me. And if anyone can find it, it's me.
He spread the map out on the boulder, tracing the routes with a claw. Trails stretched across the parchment, leading to places he could only guess at: forests, mountains, deserts. At the center, where all the paths converged, was a symbol, a cup, wreathed in steam, its base encircled by a golden ring. One path seemed to begin not far from his current location, snaking through the forest toward the mountains. Java's tail flicked thoughtfully as he studied the map, a sense of excitement building in his chest. Java's tail twitched with excitement.
A blend so good it has its own map? What an adventure this will be.
He tucked the map into a small pouch slung over his back, a gift from an old traveler who'd once traded stories with him. The smell of roasted coffee still lingered faintly in the air, drawing his gaze toward the horizon. As Java took off into the sky, he didn't notice the faint glow that flickered around the ruins behind him, or the way the forest seemed to whisper softly in his wake. All he cared about was the adventure ahead, the map that promised the greatest coffee he'd ever tasted, and the excitement brewing in his chest. As Java soared through the sky, the excitement of his discovery bubbled within him, but as the hours passed and the sun dipped lower, reality began to settle in. He could only follow the map so far, there were no shortcuts to the blend of the gods. He landed on a rocky hilltop and unfurled the map again, squinting at the winding trail that led deep into a dense forest.
This is going to take longer than I thought.
He muttered, stashing the map back in his pouch. The wind shifted, carrying with it the familiar earthy scent of the wilds. With a deep breath, Java descended from the hilltop and began his trek into the underbrush. As the trees thickened around him, the sounds of the world grew muffled, and the path grew more treacherous. His wings clipped against branches, and his claws snagged in the tangled roots. It wasn't long before he realized that this quest for coffee was going to be far more demanding than he ever expected. Java grumbled to himself as he pushed through a particularly thick patch of brambles. His wings were pressed uncomfortably against his sides, and his claws kept snagging on the overgrown vines. He muttered under his breath, mostly for the sake of company, though he knew the forest wouldn't respond.
Well, this is just fantastic. If I'd known there'd be this much foliage involved, I might have packed a snack.
He paused to swipe at a particularly stubborn vine, which only tangled itself further around his claws.
I mean, seriously, do trees need to grow this close together? Some space, please.
He tugged again, and the vine snapped loose, sending him tumbling backward into a patch of mud.
Great. Mud. My favorite.
Java said, shaking the dampness from his scales with a dramatic flick of his wings.
No way I'm getting that out for days.
He sighed, standing up and giving his wings another flap to clear the worst of the mud.
But hey, it's all part of the adventure, right? I mean, what would a legendary quest be without a little bit of discomfort? This whole thing's starting to feel like one of those endless journeys where nothing happens except a lot of walking and complaining.
As if to prove his point, a distant bird call echoed through the trees, followed by the rustling of leaves. Java scowled at the noise.
Sure, you can fly off without a problem. Must be nice to have wings that work, right?
The forest was dense, the canopy blocking out most of the sun, and Java could feel the weight of the journey settling on him. It wasn't that he minded the travel, it was the unpredictability, the unknowns ahead. But in a way, it only spurred him on.
Oh, don't worry.
He continued, his voice rising with mock confidence.
We're gonna find that blend, and when we do, it'll be the best cup of coffee the world has ever seen. And then, maybe I'll get some answers about this map.
He paused for a moment, his tail swishing idly behind him.
And maybe a nice warm bed. Or at least a place to sit without getting stuck in mud.
Java began trudging forward again, his footsteps slow but determined, the underbrush seeming to push back at him with every step. But no matter how thick the forest got, Java couldn't shake the feeling that, despite the mud and the thorns, he was exactly where he needed to be. Java paused for a moment to catch his breath, wiping a few stray twigs from his scales. His tail flicked with mild frustration, but he quickly shook it off.
Well, this is fun,
he said with a grin, as if trying to convince himself.
Nothing says adventure like trudging through a forest that doesn't want you here.
He stretched his wings slightly, careful not to snag them on any more branches.
But hey, who am I kidding? This is the stuff legends are made of. Mud, thorns, and me. A dragon on a quest for the perfect brew.
He gave a slight chuckle, the sound more confident than he felt. Java had always been the type to look on the bright side, especially when things got tough. After all, what was the point of a journey if you couldn't enjoy the little moments? Even in the face of the tangled underbrush, he found something amusing in the absurdity of it all. With a determined huff, Java pushed forward, stepping over a particularly large root that threatened to trip him. He lifted his head, feeling the cool, moist air on his snout.
Okay. So maybe this is a bit more than I signed up for. But that's the fun of it, right?
He looked up at the sky, where a sliver of sunlight broke through the trees.
This forest may not be easy, but every step is one closer to something amazing. The blend of the gods is out there, and I'm going to find it. There's no way I'm turning back now.
He let out a contented sigh and flicked his tail happily, the optimism returning.
Besides, there's nothing quite like the satisfaction of overcoming a challenge. Mud, vines, and all. It'll make the coffee taste even better when I finally get there, right?
Java continued on, his steps a little lighter, his grin a little broader. The forest might be a maze of obstacles, but it was also full of possibilities. As long as he kept his wits and his wings, there was no challenge too great. And who knew? Maybe he'd find a nice snack along the way too.
Every adventure needs a little spice.
He mumbled to himself with a chuckle.
And if I find a few berries or nuts along the way, that's just the cherry on top.
As he trudged on, Java knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead might be long, but he had a feeling the rewards would be just as great. His thoughts raced. The map promised an adventure unlike any he'd ever imagined, but the ghost's words lingered in his mind. What trials lay ahead? What made the blend of the gods so special and so dangerous? And as the sun dipped lower, casting the forest in shades of gold and green, he felt more certain than ever that his journey, no matter how challenging, was going to be one for the books. And, whatever the answers, Java knew one thing for certain: his life was about to change forever. The fire is low, the mugs are empty, and tonight's tale has come to an end. But the journey is far from over. Thank you for gathering with us at Dungeon Brew Coffee Tavern, where adventure brews with every sip. Join us next time as new challenges arise, mysteries deepen, and the magic of the tavern unfolds. If you enjoyed this taste of adventure, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a new episode. We'll save a seat for you at the tavern. See you soon.